looking lovely. Looking like an angel.
Oh, thank you.
The white really suits you. You are glowing.
You know, Easter is coming up, so I don't know, just celebrating the significant events. The
thanking Judas.
Someone tweeted that. Someone was like, Judas, thank you for the holiday, bro. I was like, yo, you people
are wild, man. Like how do people come up with these things? Like, thank you, Mepras. Thank you, Judas, for your holiday, Mepras. I was like, hey, guys, thank you for denying him, for selling him. Actually, that was Peter, wasn't it? It was for selling him for how many lots?
12 pieces of silver.
12 pieces of silver. Yeah. So no, that's cool. That's cool. What else has been happening? How's work?
Fine. I can't believe it's April.
I know, right? It's like, where is time going?
Like, and the funny thing is, because we're recording this like way ahead, so we're recording this on the 1st of April. Like, I don't know about you, nobody tried to do any April food or anything. I mean, I saw one or two on social media, but I think people are just like, we are living in the middle of a pandemic of this joke in itself. Like, ain't nobody got time for pranks.
Nah, ain't nobody got time for that. Like, I didn't get any pranks either. Like, it was just, honestly, it was just like another day. People are fed up, and did you see, like, thank you to Garikai, who was tagging all of England and United Kingdom in Ontario's business. My nigga, what do we have to do with what's happening in Canada and in France?
I think we are like, oh, you guys next.
No, we don't accept that spirit of negativity.
Exactly.
We're not even entertaining that. We're meeting or socializing now with 2 households, 6 outdoors. This is progress. Exactly. Next month shops are opening, hairdressers are opening. So, watch us slay.
Exactly. Listen, we've been in lockdown since December, guys. It's April now, and things will only open from the 12th. Like, a lot of things outdoor as well, not even indoor. So it's been a long time. But shout outs to everyone that's in Canada and in France, and
we are thinking about you.
Exactly, and hopefully, like, the vaccination rollouts in your countries kind of accelerates. But yeah, I can't imagine. Like, it's so disheartening, sort of seeing that the third wave and people being locked down. Like, thoughts and prayers. Thoughts and prayers
indeed. Yeah. So, guys, for those listening to us for the first time, what happened?
Welcome to Gelinski's podcast with me, Natasha.
And Xolie.
I sometimes go by Nat.
Sometimes go by Michelle. Sorry, did you see there was a little bit of a technical glitch there? I thought I'd lost you.
Oh, no.
Okay. No, that's fine.
I saw that. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. So, it's been a crazy week already. We've had a few conversations regarding the model that UK is in terms of, being the model, what do they call it? Model of that, how not racist they are, and how there is no institutional racism or structural racism. There's been a report that came out. When did it come out? Because it didn't come out yesterday. It came out at 11. Was it yesterday?
Yeah, the 31st of March.
So we have had a few, I don't know, because I think you probably explained it a little bit better in regards to what the document is and, how it pertains to us. But it's raised quite a lot of uproar. It's been, numerous discussions that have been had post this report. So do you want to maybe just tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So like some of you may have seen on social media, like if you're in the UK, I'm sure you've kind of seen this. So just to kind of give this is the to give background context. So on the back of the Black Lives Matter protest, and the protest that happened last summer following the death of George Floyd, where there was sort of like a global awakening, and suddenly everyone woke up and was like, "Oh my God, this is dreadful. We need to do something." Off the back of that, and in the UK, issues were being highlighted. We had the report that showed that there were disparities in terms of who COVID was impacting, particularly Black, Asian, minority ethnic people, for a number of reasons: socioeconomic, the jobs that people have, but they were just disproportionately being affected by COVID. So off the back of that, the UK government appointed an independent set of commissioners to look into racial equality and racial issues and racial disparities in the UK. Right. So I think it's important to kind of make that clear, because social media only has so much character. So it's been reported as the UK government has said, but as a technicality, the UK government appointed a set of commissioners who include Dr. Tony Sewell. So that's why the report is called the Sewell Report, because he's the chief commissioner. And it's a 258-page document. I am on I am so sad. I am on page 66 of 258. And essentially, there's a number of things that came out of the report, right? And the main thing has been that, paraphrasing here, but that the report has found that the UK is not institutionally racist, is not structurally racist, right? That is the key headline. Um, those who have been following UK news or have been in the UK for a long time will remember that following the death of Stephen Lawrence, there was a report on the Met Police, and
Yes.
that report is the one that said, the Met Police was institutionally racist. And I think from that time on, that's when that tag has always been there, that, the racism is quite institutional and quite structural and embedded in every part of, public office, police, our health services, exactly, and the like. So the report says that, and then the report has a set of recommendations for government. So there are 24 recommendations to government. Some of the recommendations include things like getting rid of the term BAME. So BAME stands for Black, Asian, Minority, Ethnic. So that is a term that has previously been used like in public policy, when they're talking about certain groups. And one of the recommendations is, get rid of that term. There's another recommendation, which is the funding of the Equalities and Human Rights Commission, which previously was, had been really sort of like underfunded and had lost its sort of power. I don't know if you remember, like you'd always see Trevor Phillips and all that stuff. Like the Equalities and Human Rights Commission used to always be a big thing, used to make a lot of noise previously, but now you hear nothing, because it's literally been narrowed down in size and everything, right? And then the report goes on. So we've got the 24 set of recommendations, which, to be honest, like some of the recommendations make sense, like they're fair. You can't argue with some of the things, but I think what has been really unhelpful, just as someone who's interested in this work, is The moment you say there is no institutional racism, right? The moment you say, oh, Britain is a model for other countries. Oh, I mean, okay, yes, maybe if you're looking at Europe, my God, like it's not hard to beat France, like one of the most racist countries like ever. There's not something to pat yourself behind if you're better than France.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel the thing is, I mean, basing it on our own experiences, and when you talk about the BAME community, Black and ethnic minority community, yes, our experiences are far and wide, right? You have various things that are going to be affecting different people at different points. So, like you rightfully said, there's disparities in healthcare, the disparities for example, in public and private office, where there is inequality in pay. There's all these other issues where people are not even maybe even getting employed. But when you say that they are the model of a model in regards to not being racist or not being institutionally racist or structurally racist, it's like we will look at our own experiences and think, wow, because our experiences are still there. The things that we have gone through, the things that have come out, even through COVID, like you said, the whole report that showed the disparities in how loads of people, like I don't know the exact figures, but how much more people from the BAME communities died because of COVID, and how the impact of COVID had on people who were living in low socioeconomic backgrounds, who were living in, I remember this one particular report when they're looking at, even things like domestic violence and all these, the numbers that increased, and increased within this community. So to think that, that one person can sit and be like, oh my goodness, this has happened to me, right? And you're like, this has happened to me. This is my experiences. And then to think about it on a wider collective, that there has been so much that has been reported, all these things that have come out of the woodworks, and to actually come out and say we are the model. I feel like it's a bit of a slap on the cheek, because how can you forget? How can you look at what people are experiencing, the hurt that people have gone through, the challenges that people continuously face, whether it's accessing healthcare, whether it's getting jobs that people actually deserve, and to say that no, actually we are doing okay. I feel like it's very disheartening. Very, very disheartening. And yes, we can look at what's happening in France and look at what's happening elsewhere. But hello, what can we concentrate on what's happening to us? Because what we are saying is happening out there is happening. You can't deny that.
And that's the thing. So I think that's my frustration with this whole thing, is that I think, like I said, it's a 258-page report. It's not all bad, right? But it's curious to me the way it's been positioned, right? Because it doesn't help if there are some good things that no one's going to read. Like a small percentage of the population will actually read the whole thing, right? We're going to
Yes.
see the headlines. And
Mhm.
the whole, like, oh, it's not institutionally racist, that's not helpful, because there's a way that you could position the same thing, right? You
Mhm.
could say, you know what, we've looked at the evidence, we've spoken to people. What we see is a country that is starting to address some of its,
Absolutely.
over
Absolutely.
the years, we are
Mhm.
seeing that the structural issues are being challenged, and we encourage those further. Because first of all, right, let's start with the BAME term, right? I know that people they're really plausible arguments where people hate the term because they're like, oh, you're just lumping us together and you are bringing us together.
Mhm.
Yes, we can talk about that. But if you think about why, right? It was, I think the term, again, we will never have a term that is right when you're trying to talk about people that are coming together who happen to be the victims of racism, or more susceptible to experiencing racism, right? Because they are not white, right? But what the term does is, I think, from a strategic point of view, it just brings people together so that we do that. I mean, when you have a report that recommends getting rid of the term, okay, that's fine, but that's not a serious thing. That's distraction. That, I think, that's a distraction tactic, because then we will spend time talking about the word and the
Yeah,
word. How should people call? And then you're not taking action.
yeah.
You're focused on
Like,
the distraction and not action.
yeah, it's like a divide and conquer thing. And I feel like, yes, the people can have, issues against the term because of, you're right, um, you can't have shared experiences of over, of a community of people. So, it just doesn't cover Black people, it covers all ethnic minorities. And each and every person and each and every group is going to have their own issues that they feel are relevant to them. That being said, when you look, for example, at the COVID report, when it came as such a shock to us, because they put all those people who had been affected negatively by COVID in that report. And, because of that, you can then take action. But if you start, looking at groups separately, and I think this is unfortunately what's going to happen after this, is, you're going to start looking at, okay, so from Black people, this is the number, and you find that the numbers are not going to be, they're going to be shocking to us, because you're thinking, oh, that's another life. It's going to be shocking to a group of people, to some people. But when you have that collective experience, when you're looking at it from that level, when you're looking at it from a quantitative point of view, and which is why there's things like quantitative research, because they get all these figures, and then you then make recommendations, and you then make changes based on that. But if you're going to just split it and just like split hairs, I just feel like it's going to take us a lot longer to actually move forward. And you're right. By the time we actually agree on a term that suits everybody, and that we might never get to that point as well. We might never get to the point where we're like, oh, you know what? Actually, this is a term that we are all agreeing on. This is a term that we're all happy with. It might just be like, oh, you know what? Let each and every group keep to themselves. And I feel like that's the divide and conquer. I feel like we're more united under that umbrella of pain, because even though you may, I'm just thinking about one of the things that has come out over the last few months, or in the last few years, like, and we spoke about things like diversity and inclusion, is that all these groups, and yes, we can argue, we can shout and say, what exactly is the point of this? Is it just a tick box exercise? But I think when these groups sit down and actually address certain issues, when you have got somebody from Afro-Caribbean community, you have somebody from the Filipino community, you have somebody from Africa, then you have Black, British, you have all those people together, you can then put your heads together, put your ideas together, and then again make recommendations. But if we can't even sit down as a group, then we are literally going to take forever to move forward, to move forward with the issues that are pertinent to us.
Yes, you're so right. And the other thing, this this about on the divide and conquer thing, because another thing, like, so the report talks about how sort of like Black Africans are performing better, and then it even looks at, like, when you break it down, like boys versus girls, that black Caribbean and white working class British kids perform sort of like lower than black African. So there's this whole thing about, you know what, they're doing well, and the pay disparity is sort of narrowing. And I was listening to one of the commissioners who was saying, "Oh, talking about institutional racism, it's a lazy way of looking at it, because there are some other issues like gender, sorry, not gender, but like geography, location." And then, oh my God, then they start doing this thing where it's going down the whole model minority route, right? Uguti, like, oh, look at these newer immigrant groups, these newer African immigrant groups whose kids are excelling.
The model African groups.
Whose kids are excelling, and what. And if we are not careful, it then leads us back into the whole like, oh, Caribbean versus Africans. Oh, look at Chinese people versus Black people. And then it divides us further. And I thought that was just so. And then actually, the report actually talks about absent fathers. That's when I said,
I
yo,
that's I was like, wow.
I said, yeah, like all the dog whistle terms, right? It's not, these people look, some of them are lazy
Yeah.
because some of them are doing well, some of them, the fathers are not in the home. This is why. This is hair. What? Like, so unhelpful. And honestly, like, reading that, I was just like, if I were Black Caribbean, I would feel so hard done by.
Mm.
But by just, not just this report, but we've had Windrush,
Mm.
the Windrush scandal, and all that. And it made me then think of the whole the conversation that we had about the illusion of inclusion previously,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah, because it's like it's a whole piece, isn't it? And you're I think there's just, as you go on, there's just all these traces of, really trying to almost break down, like, look how you're looking at in like people's families. That absent fathers are mostly present in, unfortunately, it's in Black communities, but to bring that into a report about, about race, like how is that even relevant in regards to,
And
I don't
here's
know. I mean, I get it, because, like, they're talking about performance, and probably if you've got a stable environment, if you're living in like, location, the geography of where you are, you've got better catchment areas for schools and all that. But I don't know. It's just very disheartening, because when we spoke about the whole illusion of inclusion, and about how, we are bringing up children in this country who feel like they are a part of the country, and then it turns around when they're a lot older, or even when they're younger, how actually you're not one of us, and this is something that is pertinent, especially when places for university. When you're going to university, when you look at your surname and you don't fit, look at your name, you don't. It's not a name that is known, or whatever it is. And it's the same thing when you're looking at job applications, and one of the things that came out from the last few, posts. I don't know if it was made, or if it's been going on a lot longer and we maybe didn't know about it, but that whole unconscious bias. I remember at my old job, they were looking at ways in which to, not, when you're getting CVs, not having the name show or whatever it is, so that whoever's looking or reviewing the CVs can just make an assessment, or based on the person's qualities and not because of where they are from. But all these things are just literally linked into that. And I feel this has almost squashed all the work that has been done previously. I feel like this report is actually, we have said, these are our experiences. And I have my own experiences as a Black woman that I have shared, and I've said, this is what has happened to me. So if all of us, and I feel I can identify that this is a result of whether it's institutional or structural racism. But if you are now then coming back to me and saying that, actually, Michelle, Oli, this is not it. It's like, okay, but I'm sharing my experiences. I'm telling you it's like gaslighting. It's not, it's like, it is gaslighting. And you're saying that my experiences, it's like saying to somebody who has been beaten up, you're like, oh, it's that's not that's not being beaten up. It's something else. We don't do beating up in this country. No, you do.
And that's the thing. It's basically it undercuts the work that is being done in this space.
Yeah.
Because it says, for example, it says all of this so applies to the recommendations to government and public bodies and everything. So all these different initiatives that have been started, it will take well-meaning individuals, perhaps in the private sector, to be like, okay, we're carrying on with it. But then it also makes you think, like, all these talks we've been doing at work, where you have had to be vulnerable as, this person that is othered and is different. It's just like it was all for nothing. Like, literally, your tears and your feelings and your vulnerabilities were just put on front stage for absolutely nothing, and and I think that's what this report will do. And okay, and then another thing, which is now like a little bit of the politics of it, is actually, right, because as we said before, this is an independent report to government, right? But this happens all, like, okay, so you've got all these people, and all the commissioners were like Black and brown people, whatever. Interestingly enough, there was Dr. Dambisa Moyo, the Zambian economist. I am a low-key fan of her work, although I was now rethinking her whole dead aid thing. I don't know if you ever read the book, basically, where she was arguing against aid. She was saying that aid isn't helping.
Yes.
But actually, now that I think about it, because I wanted to do a thread about it, because I was like, actually, that is a very right-wing way of thinking, because the issue isn't, because if we've been colonized and our resources have been channeled away from our home countries, right? Mm-hmm. Yes, the West should give us aid. Maybe the issue is calling it aid, right? Mm-hmm. But there should be some kind of like reparatory, there should be some type of reparatory exchange where we're kind of, being paid back for the resources that have been pillaged from us, right? So arguing against receiving aid doesn't help. Yes, you can argue against total reliance on aid, but it should. So now I was like, no, now I feel confident enough to challenge her economic theories, even though I don't have a degree in economics, master's in it.
You exist.
No, I was like, no, So anyway, she is one of the commissioners. This woman doesn't live in the UK.
How can she be talking about our experiences? And I was saying, guys, please do not ever let me be that woman or that person who is involved in such discussions. And I go there to share my little experience, because apparently she lived or she studied here, and goodness knows how many years ago. But hello, you do not know our 24/7. You do not know that. You're living. What does her husband do? Her husband is
he's a billionaire though.
But so we do not have billionaire husbands. We are working here. We are working. We get up in the morning, we go to work, we come back home. So we are the ones who've got these experiences. So it's really unfair for her to come in here and just kind of share her little. I saw somebody recently who was like, who it's just like who illustrated this Uti, how little you know of someone's life, right? You can see their whole life, but you know that much of it. And I feel like that's exactly what she has done. She's come here and she's been like very absolute about things, and and left. But ask us what it's like to be here. Ask people, ask other women, ask other men what it's like for them, those who do not have access to healthcare. Like, ask them. Ask those who have been turned down 1,000 times for job interviews, yet they've got qualifications. Ask them what it's like for them. But I feel like all that has just literally been taken away from us. And again, the most frustrating thing for me is, I don't know where I said this or when I said this, is having to explain this and having to have these discussions is tiring. The fact that we are here again, we're now sharing our experiences again, because we are now having to say, you are gaslighting us. We're not having to say to you, no, actually, this is what's happening. This is actually what's happening in our lives. We're having to talk about it all the time. And I feel like, goodness gracious, I feel like it's just constant. We are constantly, as a woman, you have to explain to men that, walking down the streets, I feel uncomfortable if you're walking 2 steps behind me, and you're not, and I'm trying to make you pass. You have to explain that. You have to explain to other races that, as a Black woman, these are my experiences. These are things that I have gone through in the work. People say that I've got attitude. People say that I am a Black angry woman. We have to explain that. We have to explain again to people who live here that, no, actually in Africa, things are not like this. We don't come up from grass huts. We live in proper houses. We've got, bigger yards than most of y'all. But it's just that constant having to explain. It's like when the whole Megan issue as well, like we're now talking about from a woman's perspective, when do we get a rest? When do we get a rest? It's
Listen,
exhausting.
there is no rest. But another thing that I kind of then wanted to sort of touch on the whole model minority sort of thing, and is that I do think that sometimes, okay, how can I put it? Like, newer immigrant groups, we come in and actually we benefit from a lot of work that, maybe the Caribbeans have done, a lot of fights that they've done to improve labor laws and strengthen, stuff. So we benefit from that. But then, how can I put it? Sometimes we are not, we don't help, and we are more susceptible to be used as a tool to further to further some of these structural gaps, and to further supremacy, because we don't understand the context. So we don't take the time to really understand the history and the background. So I'll give you an example. Like, when I came, and I'm sure like maybe similar to you, hand on heart, it took me a while to really be like, oh, there's racism. Not because it was not there, right? But my sort of like interactions, like, like how people here, like, how can I say? I feel like sometimes there's this like stiff upper lip and everything. Like, everyone will always be polite and they will smile at you. But they'll quickly, like, as soon as you go, they quickly like stop smiling. But if you don't know these things, right, you'll be like, oh, these people are nice. And then it took me actually starting to like work and go into institutions to be like, oh, but at face value, it was just like, oh, I don't know if you share that, if that makes sense. Like, it's but now, there's certain things, right? Like, if you don't know, you may not even think it's racist, but when you now look, you're like, oh, it is. I'm not sure if I'm making sense. And it's because you're not familiar with the culture and with the environment. And so sometimes um you could it then can turn into the whole like, oh, but these black British people, why they always complaining, or why these black Caribbeans always complaining. But it's because they have been here longer and they know the play, like they know the game, right? I don't know if I'm sort of making sense. And sometimes, sorry, I was just laughing. And sometimes in that naive, because even if you look at some of the people that say some of the more harmful things, right? I think even before we talked about this minister who came out and was like, this government does not support critical race theory. A lot of them are from African parents, and a lot of them actually moved to the I like us, like moved to the UK young. And that's why I was just like, what you were saying, like, oh, you know what, you really need to be careful, because sometimes you can go into these things and you need to be careful about the scope of what you can contribute to those things. Because, say, for example, I mean, I'm not yet at commissioner level, but if I were to be appointed, like, I mean, hey, if the government is asking you, is like, you would be like, oh my god, this is great, me, a girl from Malaya, and you would take that opportunity, right? But then sometimes you need to be clear that, okay, I can only talk about the immigrant experience. This is the limit to what I can talk about. Even though I've been here for 18 years, I cannot speak to the full Black British experience. And I think that's where we need to be better at being clear about what we can or cannot talk about. So
100%, like I agree with that. And again, I was it last week or whatever it was, when we were talking about being absolute about things, in that you cannot come up and speak for, you cannot come up and speak for all Black women. You can come up and share your experiences as a Black woman. You can't, you can't have experience. And that is a good thing. It's a good thing that you haven't gone through what every other Black woman has to go through. It's a good thing. And what we want to know from you is, what is it like for you? What has it been like for you? What was it like for you when you came and lived and you studied here 10 years ago, 18 years ago, whatever it was? What do you think is different now? And then when we talk about the now, we want somebody who's experiencing that now. And I feel like that is something that, you're right, we need to really push a lot more of. We need to be authentic ourselves, to kind of be like, what, yes, it's nice to be at commissioner level, where you can talk about all these people, where you can group everybody, but be honest enough and say, no, actually, let's do focus groups. Let's get 18 to 30-year-olds. Let's see what is common there. Like, what is most prevalent in that group. Let's explore that. Bring other groups in. And obviously that is a lot of work. And I think sometimes that is why it is then easier to kind of pick up one person and be like, what was your experience? But that is never fully what everybody else has experienced. Like, your experiences are going to be different from my experiences. There'll be similarities. There'll be things that are very much, that you can see that, oh, this happened to Nat, this happened to Michelle, this happened to so-and-so, this happened to so-and-so. But you might also find that, oh, but this didn't happen to this person. What was it about this person that they had a different experience? Was it because of geography or location? And all these things. But, these conversations are important. We will continue to have them, I'm sure, for a while to come, unfortunately. And we will, I'm sure, be called upon at some point to kind of talk about our own experiences. But up until then, we just need to find platforms where we can say, actually, you know what, this is pertinent to me, this is important to me, and this has happened to me, and find out where else is it happening.
Yeah. I wanted to play something which I thought was interesting. So there's an MP here in the UK called David Lammy, and it looks like, I don't know whether he's guest hosting or he's now a host on LBC, which is a talk radio station.
Yeah.
So I'll just play a snippet. So a caller called, and yeah, whew, yeah, okay. Hopefully,
you keep saying that you are African Caribbean, which is fine. But how can you be African Caribbean and English? I couldn't be African. I'm English, but I certainly could not call myself African Caribbean.
You could be Irish, though. You could have Irish.
No, I'm not Irish.
Yeah,
but
you could be. You could be.
No, I'm not. Because I have looked my name right the way back to the Middle Ages, my maiden name, and I'm Anglo-Saxon.
Great.
But you will never be English. You are African Caribbean.
But why will I never be English?
Because you're African Caribbean. Look, I can't say to you.
What about my kids? What are my kids? What are my kids?
I can't say I'm African Caribbean.
What? Yeah, but the truth is, Jean, just a little bit of history on this. Britain, 400 years ago, started going out into the world. It colonized and conquered a lot of the world. Mm. A lot of the world has ended up coming back to the mother country. My parents were part of that generation who came from the Caribbean. When I took a DNA test, I actually had Scottish in me, probably because as a result of that, someone somewhere, frankly, got their leg over with one of my ancestors, and I've got Scottish blood running through me. I said that gently, but it could have been horrendous. Let's be clear about that. And here I am, having grown up in this country, have been born of this country. And actually, the truth is, it's a myth that there's one English ethnicity. There's not, because England has always been a country in which Huguenots, Danes, all sorts of people have passed through. So when you say you are English, I'm not saying that doesn't mean something to you and matter hugely.
It does.
Because there are probably, as you put it, years and years.
And I'll stop it there. So they kind of went back and forth. I don't think they agreed. And man, so on this, right, I think if David Lammy thinks he's English, right?
It's whatever he says he is.
Yeah, nobody should take that away from him.
No.
But then it got me back to our conversation that we had on, was it episode 3, right? Which is the illusion of inclusion. Yeah. And if you haven't listened to it, after this, go back, because it ties in, because actually this has taken us there, right? And I think it's a shame, and it kind of like, I think I haven't done it in a neat way, but the whole conversation about the newer immigrant groups and everything, and the Caribbeans, because if you look at people like David Lammy, whose parents came here in the 60s during the Windrush generation, that relationship was very different, right? Because even like if you look at names, because there was slavery. There was slavery in Britain, but they just didn't have the weather for it, right? So their slavery was out there, not not in the country, but it was there, right? Because they always try and say, oh, they're better than Americans, but actually they had indentured servants in the Caribbean, and whose identity and names were stripped from them, and were made to feel like you are a part of us. You know, you are us. This is the motherland. Like, their relationship, I think, was very different to Africans. Or yeah, I think it was a very different relationship to Africans. So even coming here, it was just like, yeah, you're coming home and everything, which is why we got what, the Windrush scandal. Because of course, why wouldn't you have that when people feel comfortable that this is home, right?
Mhm.
Whereas Tina, I don't know like people who, like, I don't know Africans who don't have passports, because we are ready on site as soon as you can apply for naturalization.
Yeah, out.
In 10,000 pounds, you will find it. because, because you can't.
Immigration makes a lot of money through like the whole process of immigration. So yeah, for sure.
Exactly. And then now you get to this point, right, where for a long time everyone is like, oh, the whole, we're colorblind, and
Mhm.
yes, of course you're English, you're fine. And then imagine, I mean, this doesn't apply to me. I was not born here, right? So I'm very much still in touch with my Zimbabweanness, right? But actually, I'm thinking of like my younger cousins and stuff who were born here.
Mm.
I think if I were to ask them,
Mhm.
are you English?
They'll say yes.
No,
They wouldn't.
no,
That's good.
not Ole, like they wouldn't, like
Mm.
these 16, because I think us, we are still very much in touch with home.
Mhm.
I mean, would you allow your children born here to think they're English?
Absolutely not.
Exactly, right?
No. You're
And
Zimbabwe.
a lot of, exactly. You're British, yes, but you are,
But culturally, your culture is,
exactly,
you're
right?
Zimbabwe.
Similarly, like if I have kids, there's no way I'm making them believe they're English.
Only
Not
to
in
be
my
told.
house.
Only to be told later on. Actually. No, I think, there's definitely a conversation around that. Um, and I don't know if we are speaking about it so passionately because we are so, there's that element of preserving culture. You want to preserve where we are, where we come from, uh, who we are, and you want that to be passed on to the next generation. But it'll be interesting to hear, like, from others, from other mothers, for example, or those, or soon to be mothers or fathers, whatever it is. Like, what do you guys think? Like, what are you saying to your kids when they're growing up? Like, what are you, if you're outside Zimbabwe, like, what are you going to say to them? Like, what are they? How would they relate to being out city? Oh, where are you from? I am for the whole, very strongly saying that, well, you know what? I was born here. My parents are from Zimbabwe. I am Zimbabwean, and this is who I am. So I feel like, really, because we need to have that, um, we need to have that within us to actually pass it on to our children, because again, it comes back to the whole preserving culture and how we do that, and this is one way of doing it. So it's one way of doing it, but it's also just helping to create somebody's identity, because without it, they will go out there into the world and they will be told all sorts of things, and they'll pick this up from there, they'll pick this up from there, and then end up not knowing who they are and where they come from. And it hurts a lot more when you are now, you know, 12, 13, and all your life you've been brought up to think that you are something. And then all of a sudden someone points it out and says, but you're different, your parents are different. It when somebody uses things about you against you, I think it hurts more. So I think really it's up to us, up to the to actually instill that identity into our children. It's really up to us to instill identity into the next generation.
And I think like going back to the clip that we heard, right? David Lammy, I think he's in his 40s or so. I think he's a strong character. But imagine if this is the first time in his life someone has challenged him and said, you are not English. Like, that is your whole identity. Like, so I think for me, sort of like the lesson is, I guess the lesson for us is definitely
48. It's 48.
Imagine if this is the first time someone has said you are not, and you have lived 48 years of your life embracing being English. How devastating is that?
It's sad. It's really sad. It's really sad.
Yeah, so I'm saying that I think the lesson for us is going back to the illusion of inclusion is, as you say, the importance of keeping ties with our cultural origins, not just for us, for the next generation, for the kids coming up, because it is very important for them at some point to be able to opt out of the dominant culture where they are, especially if we're going to be raising kids outside of them. I think another thing is the understanding piece, right? I think we need to understand other immigrant communities and not get into the trap of pitting communities against each other, saying, oh, Caribbean people are like this, or without understanding the history, without understanding the context. It is not helpful at all.
Yeah.
So I think for me, it's just like, and I'll be interested also to hear from these people that were born here. Like, because if you're born in 2000, you're 21 now, right? You're listening to the pod.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it'll be interesting. Just be interesting to hear different perspectives. And we speak so passionately about this because it's stuff that affects us. And we're not saying that everybody out there every white person is a racist, but we're saying that we need to acknowledge that there are some instances where there is a lot of injustices that occur to. Can we still even use that term, to the BAME community?
Yeah, and the thing is, because it's about addressing just the structural things. There's a number of interventions that can happen, and the interventions happen when you have people in positions that reflect the societies and reflect the market that you serve, right? So then that's the only way to kind of get rid of it. But I just think, like, for us as immigrants, it's just like, whew, where do you call home? I mean,
I was just looking for that. It's a question that we ask all the time, isn't it? It's like, I mean, people in Canada are not going to care about what we, not that they're not going to care, but it's not going to touch them as much as us, because we're here living this, and where we are questioning, where is home? We came here not out of free will. It's not that we were forced, but it was because of the situation that was back home. And now that we are here, we acknowledge that we have got access to healthcare. We've got access to things that maybe if I was in Zimbabwe, I wouldn't necessarily have the money to go in and do. But it's like, I guess the people in Zimbabwe can also be like, can't you love our problems? Yes, we do. We're trying to make a home here. We're trying to, we are trying, but these are the issues that we are facing. So sometimes when we do question, where is home? It's also about, we know that having stepped out of them and tried trying to make things work in another country. It's an attempt, isn't it? We're just trying. Siyazama. That's the 6 foot weights. When they wild out on something.
Yeah. But no. Interesting conversation. And like I said, it's a detailed report, but it almost doesn't matter when like the headlines are not helpful, know. And it just feels like it takes it's just it's a lot of undoing. But you know what? We should take heart, just continue. I think just be pragmatic about, everything that's happening. Oh, one more thing. One more thing. So this whole because what they're trying to say is education levels, blah, 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 like some particularly Black African kids outperform. And then they're saying that, like in terms of getting a job, it's the same. But then the issue is okay, yes, you can get the job, but the progression.
Like let's not even start that discussion. Let's not, because it's your guys.
The progression.
You know that video of umuntu abebizi esihlale ecaba ethi move on something else. You're busy cooking. Ugcina futhi usuchaya izandla sethi yo guys, no, it's and it's not saying that we do not progress, because we do. Here we are. We can look back and be like, okay, so these are the things that I've done. But it's also just acknowledging that some things do not come as they should for others. Which I want other people who come into departments, trainer, manager, and yet you've been there. You see that happening a lot.
Yep.
Like I tell you, like I'm going to say this in the lest somebody hears. I think lapho engisebenza khona, like ngahamba to another site engahlangana lo muntu omnyama ongumZimbabwean umongikazi as well, and she was saying to me, she was like, oh, you know what, I'm so proud of you, because I know uthi it's not easy. She was like talking about her own situation, like umuntu who's now in her late 40s going to 50s. Esithi khona like enjothi like kathethi khona apha lapha engisebenza khona sengatrain abantu abayi-2 lokho benjothi no, when I ready for the next position, so she's still there doing the same thing. But these are the struggles that not one, not two, but a lot of people actually go through, and you find that it's in various departments, various industries as well. It's the same story. But we move. But
Xolie, thank you so much. But yeah, guys, let us know. Let us know what you think. UK guys, if you're in the UK, let us know what you think. Even if you're not, like, let's hear your thoughts. Interested in hearing how you're raising your kids, or if you happen to be one of those kids that was born here. Like, how do you identify, like, or not even just in the UK, wherever, like, how do you identify? Yeah.
Awesome.
That is it. Where can people find you on the social media?
Xolie on Twitter.
At Malaika Diva on Twitter.
How about Instagram?
At Galen Skies.
YouTube.
Galen Skies.
So guys, this is where you can follow us. Instagram. So you said Instagram. Facebook.
Galen Skies podcast.
What else did I miss? I think that's it. Also, you can send us emails, dilemmas, which we're looking to do an episode in the coming future. So if you've got any dilemmas that you want us to read out and help solve, you can send us an email at
mygalenskies@gmail.com.
Awesome. And buy us a coffee. Oh, and join us on Patreon.
Yes, join us on Patreon, patreon.com, Galen Skies. You'll get exclusive content and all that stuff, additional episodes per month. But, if you'd rather, not do the monthly commitment, you can buy us some coffee just to keep us going.
Yeah. And that way, and you still get access to all the other episodes that we can put out as well.
Yes. All right, Xolie. Bye.
Bye.